Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of the Napoleon Hill Video Ezine newsletter. My name is Ray Stendel and I'm joined with Judy Williamson from the Napoleon Hill Foundation, and today we're going to talk about controlling your mental attitude and living in a complaint-free world. Judy, how are you doing today, and how did you come to select this topic?
Well, I didn't really select the topic. It was given to me by Tom Cunningham. He had interviewed the author, Will Bowen, a while back, and he asked me if I had read Will's book, and I said, well, no, not yet, but I knew about it because I believe Will was on the Oprah Winfrey show. And it was an interesting topic to me, but I thought the book sounded kind of superficial until I read it. And after I read a good portion of it, I asked Will if he would be a guest columnist for us, and he agreed. And I think if you haven't read the book, you will enjoy it a great deal because it has a tremendous amount of Napoleon Hill isms in the book, thoughts that Napoleon Hill inherited or created and are used by Will Bowen. And I think that the message is as pertinent today as when Napoleon Hill wrote it, and when Will Bowen has reconfigured it into a strategy for living a complaint-free world.
Well, that sounds great. I haven't read the book, but I'll add it to my reading list. It sounds very good. You know,
Actually, I have one on the way for you because we did order some, and so we have one as a gift.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So as I was reading through the Ezine, one of the concepts that popped out in my mind is the notion of the law of polarity. For every up, there's a down, there's an equal and opposite, and pretty much everything, inside, outside, up, down, good, bad. And when we think about bad news, one of the things that popped out in my mind is, okay, how can we identify what's good about it? Now, sometimes, admittedly, this is easier said than done. To give you a few examples, the easiest example I can share with you is from a financial perspective. When we hear a lot of news about unemployment is not doing so well, building starts are not so good, there's a problem with the euro and other currencies and so forth, war, these terrible things that are happening in the world, we can identify what moves opposite to this bad news, and within that there is opportunity for bettering yourself and your family if you have a good understanding of economics. So that was one thing that jumped out at me. But as we talked a little bit more before this recording, we were talking also about the importance of being able to recognize that there is lessons in everything that we do in life, and by identifying the lessons learned, quite frequently that can be the positive side of a not so good situation. What do you think, Judy?
I think you're absolutely right, and I like your example about economics because I think that sometimes, you know, we maybe get a little depressed because of the situation. Maybe, for example, someone thinks they deserve a raise and they ask for a raise and they don't get one. Maybe they lose their job. Maybe income that they thought was coming in didn't appear, and you think of all these downers and say, oh, the world's not any good anymore. But if you look at the upside of that and you say, okay, well, today was not such a great day for these reasons, but tomorrow's going to be better. Again, that Tom Cunningham person that I mentioned earlier on, when we ask him, how are you doing, Tom? He says, I'm amazing, but tomorrow I'll be better. And every time he says it, I have to laugh because it's like he's just anticipating a greater tomorrow instead of, I don't feel so good. I don't know what I'm going to be like tomorrow. Well, I would bet that you're not going to be so great if you talk that way. And this idea of living in a complaint-free world is not the idea of being a Pollyanna at all. It's about recognizing that what we say, what we verbalize, actually creates the opportunity or the lack of opportunity that we live. Because if we hold our thoughts within us, they're interior. They don't count as a complaint. But when we verbalize those thoughts, the words that we use, whether it's a positive idea or a negative idea, creates the outcome that we experience. Thoughts are things, and they create the world that we live in. And so when we say things like, oh, it's a bad season, it's cold outside, I don't like this weather, it's just a downer. But if we create good thoughts, and we say those good thoughts, we raise our level of anticipation and enthusiasm, What do you think?
Well, Judy, as you were talking about this, it got me to remember a story that I'd like to share. My first job in the United States, I'm originally from Canada, and I came here with a work visa and so forth, straight out of school. It was my dream to come to the West Coast, and I ended up being in Seattle. I lost my first job after 3 months of being here. So can you imagine? I'm out of school, no experience, no friends, at least in the area, no friends in the area, no experience, really no money. Living in a nice neighborhood on Mercer Island without a job, and approaching Thanksgiving and Christmas time frame when not too many people are really hiring. And at the time that I lost my job, I thought it was the worst thing ever. I was completely flabbergasted. I didn't even pronounce that right, but I was just completely out of my element. And then, the process began for me to fight to stay here because I really wanted to be here. And as I think back about it, while it was terrible going through that period, it was probably one of the best things I went through because it really helped me to really kind of see what I was made of, what I would be willing to do, how I would be able to do it, and not giving up. So the struggle in that case really helped improve who I am, and ultimately I ended up getting another good job, and then that job led to more exciting jobs and more income and so forth. So I just think back, if I would have given up, or if I would have taken my parents' offer to come back to go to engineering school, because I graduated with a business degree, and they're like, engineering is a little bit more stable, more black and white, and I didn't want to do that. I think back and I say how my life could have been totally different. So embracing the learning opportunities, even in losing a job, which can be very scary, can have a lot of benefits later on in life.
Yes, it's if you hang on just for a little bit longer, the situation is bound to change. And sometimes I think because people think that you're supposed to do something, the reaction that we sometimes have when something bad happens is that we create an even worse environment by complaining about it, by taking action in a negative way, all those things, and that it just brings us downward in a spiral. And instead of looking at life as a cycle, and it's cyclic, there's a top and a bottom, there's an in and an out, there's the polarities, as you say. When we begin to recognize that, okay, well, maybe the situation wasn't exactly as I liked it today, but it's going to be better tomorrow. I just know it. And these are the actions that I'm going to take right now to make it better tomorrow. And I know I often talk about journaling, but sometimes when I have an impasse, something's just not going right for me, and I don't want to complain about it, but I want to get that emotion outside of myself. I do use the journal because I think I can write to the journal. I can say what I want to say in that journal. And then if I read back a week or even a month, I can see how the transition from something negative to something positive took place. We've been working on our program for the convention for quite a while, and we've had some difficulties with some of the placement of some of the speakers. You've been very agreeable to kind of relocate on the second day, but some of the speakers weren't as willing to do that. And I thought, well, we just might have to uninvite them, I guess, in a way of speaking. But the situation worked out because the people involved in the program thought of options. You were able to switch your day, and the options worked. But, had we been negative about it and said, no, you have to stay in this program, this is your spot, this is where you'll be, and not look for other placement, things wouldn't have worked out as well.
One other thing I wanted to share, based on partly what you're saying here, is this whole idea of when bad things happen, or quote unquote bad things, because it's really a label that we give, right? We have to accept that. That's an important point. We label it as a bad thing or a good thing. But let's go along with this. Let's say when quote unquote bad things happen, a lot of times you're put outside of your comfort zone. And when you're put outside of your comfort zone, worry, doubt, fear, and anxiety tends to really come into our consciousness and shake us up. But if you think back in your life, the biggest moves you've ever made in your life occurred when you were outside of your comfort zone, doing something different than what you normally would do, which gave you the same old results. So I think that's also sometimes a gift, depending on the situation, to be out of your comfort zone and to appreciate it for what it is.
Yes, and you do your greatest learning when you're outside of that comfort zone, because that's when your senses are more alert and you can experience things, and you're looking around and saying, wow, this is happening, and that's when the educational process is actually being more thoroughly engaged. You know, it's amazing, and those are the things that we resist most often because we don't want to challenge ourselves to come up with maybe more creative solutions. But when we do, we can look back and pat ourselves on the back and say, wow, I survived that, I survived another one, you know. And yet we've elevated our status, and that's what's so great about it, because you know, it's like students in a classroom. I'd been an English teacher for a long, long time, and when we had an assignment, a writing assignment, you hear the moans go through the classroom, and they'd say, oh, we have to do this, you know. And once they did the assignment and they saw that they were capable of writing that really high-level essay, I mean, the smiles and the obvious pride in the students when they got their papers back was just amazing. Mm-hmm. And so they were ready for the next challenge and the next challenge. You know, things I said I couldn't do 10 years ago, I do now just easily. Mm-hmm. And I had all the reasons why I couldn't do those things, you know. And I learned new ways of doing things, and now it's easier to accomplish than I ever imagined it would be.
Yep. And you know, one more thing to talk about with respect to the Ezine and the guest article on complaining is, I think it's also important as you increase your consciousness and understanding of complaining in general and become more observant of people who complain in your world, and realize that they're contributing to your environment. And whether it's your family, your friends, your colleagues, their words that they use and the way they articulate themselves in your presence does affect you. And sometimes it's not necessarily about you being the complainer, is that if you allow yourself to be subjected to constant complaining everywhere around you, it will infiltrate your consciousness, I guarantee you. So I think what's important is to identify the people who are constant complainers and label them in your mind for what they are, and then where possible, you know, don't spend as much time with them and don't go as often, particularly if you have control over your interactions with them. And every time you catch them complaining, say to yourself, you know, they're a complaining magnet, and they're going to attract bad things into your life. And it's almost like the antidote to their negativity. But if you don't recognize it, it soon creeps into your own mind, and sooner or later you will start to complain as well.
Right, and Will Bowen uses an example just like that in his book. He said that at one point in his life, he and his wife were friends with a couple that when they got around this couple, they were always constantly complaining, and they felt that it just escalated, and they didn't enjoy the meetings anymore, and so they kind of removed themselves from that couple, because that was the point of the contact, to get together to complain about, oh God, ain't it awful, you know. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, it seems like everything becomes even worse. And I think the idea of going 21 days complaint free, not uttering a negativity that could colorize your world, is a great thing to do. You know, in Catholicism, we have the season of Lent coming up soon, and maybe that's something that people could challenge themselves to do, because Lent is a time of sacrifice. So I guess we could give up complaining, you know, and it would make us a better person, you know, instead of giving up, you know, I call it soda pop or pop. Many people, you know, say soda, but a lot of people say, well, I'm going to give up this particular food or that particular drink or this or that. Well, give up something that can transform your life, like give up complaining, you know.
I agree. So why don't we make that the action item from today's video, is to really consciously become aware of complainers, whether when you complain or others complain, and give it up from yourselves, and at the same time try and minimize your exposure to people who do complain too much. So that can be a good action item. All
right. And I can't wait till you read the book so we can talk about some of the examples too in here. And we'll see how they relate to Napoleon Hill, and there's a direct alignment in this book.
Oh, I look forward to it. And I'd like to remind our viewers that we'd love to hear from you, whether you have comments that you liked what we talked about and you would like to add to the conversation, or you didn't quite agree with everything. Let us know what you think. Let us know if there's other topics you'd like us to cover, and we'd be more than happy to dive into that. Just send an email to ezinequestions@naphill.org. You can see that email at the bottom of your screen, and we will review and add you to our growing queue of topics that we'd love to talk about and really include you in the conversation. So with that, Judy, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ray.